Welcome.
Hi, I'm Louise Larsson. I work for a company called DenCity, which is a part of the city of Gothenburg. I first thought I would show you a movie of a project we call River City, which is what the company I work for do. But I think Staffan Bolminger yesterday told you some more about what is going to happen here in Gothenburg, that we will double the size of the city center, and it's almost a new small Swedish town that will be built in the existing city center. And that is what we call River City. So this is Lindholmen, where we are today. I can actually start with this. So we are at the orange dot today, and this is where we were this morning for the study visit, Lindholmsleveransen. When we are building a new city in Gothenburg with high ambitions regarding sustainability, there are a number of challenges that we are going to face. And we think we have to find new solutions to be able to solve these. And that is why we work with urban consolidation from the cities part. And since we are a city, we have some tools to work with this, and this Lindholmsleveransen is one of the tests that we have done. So as Christopher told before, this is Lindholmsleveransen, which is a very successful solution for urban consolidation, which has been here since 2008. So one of the few examples that has actually been able to live through and after the project time. There are other more solutions like this, like Älskade stad and Stadsleveransen, which we heard of yesterday and we'll hear of more today. And we know that there are a lot of difficulties to make these last in the long term. But Lindholmsleveransen is one of those that has been able to do that. An evaluation, which Christopher mentioned before, was done in 2014, which shows that the transports decreased from 85 to 10 per week in the area, which was the orange field you saw in the map. The total reduction of transportation you heard also, but also a better separation of waste for recycling, which is an important factor for the environment. And also by these reductions, reduction in CO2 emissions too. And this is how it is today. And we think, as said yesterday too, that urban consolidation is one key to solve the problem in the last mile and urban logistics. But we also think that we have to think wider and put this into a perspective in the system. So this is the situation that we try to solve. Without consolidation, you know, all the goods travels individually to each destination, and with Lindholmsleveransen as one kind of consolidation service, we gather all the flows and then take it out with these smaller vans. And this, of course, solves the last mile problem, but we also know that it has to be connected to other kinds of solutions to benefit from the effects that this has potential to do. So what if we can consolidate further out from the city and then transport the goods into the cities in smarter ways? Maybe using emission-free vehicles like electricity and other kinds, and also the waterways, which we saw examples of yesterday. And also, there are, like you asked before, a number of other kinds of services that are needed in a city, both by businesses and people in the city. And what if those also could be connected to urban consolidation, maybe in some coordinated way, or maybe the operator of this kind of service could handle those kinds of services too, like handyman works and cleaning and etc. But we also know there are not only businesses at a site, there are also a lot of people working and living in our cities. And those also need to have their goods delivered in some way. So maybe we can, it's just to have a look at the increasing e-commerce, maybe we can also include people into this system. So that is why we are looking at delivery boxes to see if we can deliver packages to the people too. And not to forget, everything that comes into the city also goes out in some way, either like waste or recycling or in returns. And that is very, very difficult and very important to include. And that has been one of the successes for Lindos Leveransen. This is, of course, nothing we can do ourselves. We are therefore, with 25 other parts, in a project called DenCity, which you heard of yesterday too. In DenCity, we develop innovative solutions for sustainable and surface-efficient public transportations. And as a municipal company, we have a couple of tools to use. So Eldstranden Utveckling is a company owned by Gothenburg City, and we, as a company, can act between politics and the market, which makes us able to use those kind of tools to work for smarter logistics in our cities. The tools that we can use are, for example, land allocation agreements and procurements and public contracts. And our role in DenCity is to try to implement the DenCity system with these tools. So we will do that by using procurement processes and public contracts to find service providers that can help us solve these challenges that we're standing for. So the contract for Lindos Leveransen, which you saw today, was about to run out. And as part of DenCity, we saw potential to use that situation to find a new service provider to implement those new concepts that we have been working on here at Lindholmen, to try, as you saw, a quite small scale, to be able to learn from that and see how we can implement it in other parts of the city. We knew that urban consolidation is no kind of standard service at all. Primär, which has the service today, actually handles real estate services. And there are no company that do urban consolidation today. We therefore reach out to the market to hear what were going on out there and find companies that could be potential new service providers for this Lindos Leveransen. We have tried to express what we are aiming for and what we want to solve with this system, and not to try to keep away from the how, because we think that the market can find better solutions than we can for those problems. There's been a real difficult part for this, because Lindos Leveransen, as you know, has been going for a number of years and has users that have also been connected to this for a lot of years, which are kind of sensitive to the level of cost, how much this will cost, and also how the service level works, because it's really important for them that the base works. And that is why we focus on the base first, because we don't think we can add any more innovative solutions if the base doesn't work. So we have to solve that one first, because we think there is, we have to do that. So the status today is that we have just finished our procurement process, and we have a new service provider that will take over the contract for Lindos Leveransen from the 1st of January in 2020. And then we will try to, together with this service provider, develop the service further and see what we can find for new solutions. hopefully we succeeded in keeping to the why, and therefore we will work with the operator to find and implement the innovative solutions. For example, we will try to see how service boxes can be implemented to the system so that goods can come to Linusleveransen, and Linusleveransen after that can take it out to service boxes where people can get their packages where they work and live, and also smaller businesses could use those kind of boxes because a company of 1 or 2 persons maybe are not at their office all day, and then there's a really big potential in having their deliveries at one point where it can be delivered anywhere. Maybe work with off-peak deliveries as well. Also, it's a potential to see if we can connect this to the waterways, which we saw yesterday. Linusleveransen is now located quite near the ocean too. It would be really interesting to see how goods and waste could be handled to and from Linusleveransen on the water too. But the main goal is to learn from this quite small project to see how we can implement this in a much bigger scale in the other parts of the city that we develop. And one success factor for Linusleveransen is that we have had a base of users, which we don't have in the new areas that we develop. And maybe there is positive too, because we can implement the system from the start. So there is the base solution already when people move into the city. But we will try to see how we can, what parts of this solution we can scale up and replicate in Gothenburg and in other cities. This picture is also an example from the DenCity Part 2, where we involved Chalmers students who studied architecture to see how a consolidation center could be implemented into an attractive urban city. Because Linusleveransen, as you saw today, are not very attractive place to see in the future dense city. So maybe this is what a consolidation center could look in the future. I think we have made a good start, but we still have a long way to go, and I think we will find new challenges all along the way. But the aim is to make urban consolidation more a business as usual. And I think we're on the way to that. Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any questions for Louise? I don't see anything. You were talking about how to implement this also in other areas of Gothenburg and other cities. How do you work with the urban planning? Because we talked yesterday about including urban freight in the planning processes, and you have to start early and it takes a lot of time. Yeah. How do you do this? Or do you do this?
Yeah, as a public company, we can use tools like land allocation agreements to involve those kind of questions early in the process, which makes the real estate developers thinking about those kind of challenges early in the stage, where we mostly don't even have a structure for the city yet. So then we can start looking at flows and how this can be implemented. But it's really a difficult question, mostly regarding the stakeholder question, who is going to have this kind of services there. And responsibility in the city.
Could you also involve citizens? So people living in the areas or that are maybe in the future planning to live in areas, how they want to use a service like this?
Absolutely, I think so. But goods and waste handling, I think, are more kind of services that just has to be done, and the citizens mostly don't want to see it. As we saw in all the vision pictures and illustrations, we didn't see any vans or trucks in the. So the normal citizen maybe don't want to know how the system of waste and goods handle it. They just want their delivery when they want it and where they want it. But maybe we can add other functions that could be interesting to the citizens. like educational parts of it.
We have 2 questions. Björn first, I think, and Sunke.
Thank you, Louise. We mentioned on the way here that this location for the consolidation terminal is going to move somewhere, and an issue is the cost and scarcity of available land.
Yeah.
And the possibility of using a floating terminal. Could you comment on the viability of such a concept?
Absolutely, because the river city is, all the parts in the river city has in common the Göta älv, the water, so I think there is absolutely a possibility. And to learn from the pilot that we saw yesterday with the floating waste terminal, I think it's a really interesting solution for it, especially when it's hard to find places on land and the value of the land near the water is so high. We, in DenCity Part 2, we studied how a floating consolidation center could look, and there are a number of challenges to that too, but we also studied how it could work as a construction material consolidation center in the beginning, and then transform into an urban consolidation center for goods and waste when people move into the cities. And that could also be a floating solution.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Sunke?
Thank you. You mentioned there will be a new operator from next year.
Yeah.
I understand you cannot maybe say what company it will be, but it would be interesting to know if it's a logistics company or is it any other kind of company. And the second question, how was the interest from the market? Was a lot of interest to take over this operation, or is it difficult to find somebody to take it over?
Actually, we finished the procurement process yesterday, so now we are ready to sign a contract, and it will be Renova Miljö that takes over the business from 1st of January 2020. What was the second question?
If there is a lot of interest from the market actors, like let's say Schenker, DHL, PostNord, if they want to take over or not?
Yeah, we see a difference between this procurement process that we have done in 2019 and the one we did in 2016, because the market has more matured, if you say so, and there are more interest in these kind of solutions now than there were back then, which is good for the future.
Okay. Trying to see if there's one more question.
So, Olof Kallström from Jernhusen, a real estate company. I think when you're doing this in Älvstranden, Norra Älvstranden, I think about 20,000 people living there. Do you put requirements on the architecture on delivering boxes inside the houses? Also, how do you design the streets and so on, if your intention is to use this kind of more of the smaller vehicles for delivering and so on? So what kind of requirements do you put into design of the streets and into the houses for delivery boxes and so on?
I have not worked a lot with those questions myself, but one other package of DenCity is the full service real estates, which just studies those possibilities to make real estate owners implement the packages, spaces for packages in their houses. And I think we have not worked with that specifically yet at Älvstranden because it's still in the concept process and are going to be implemented now, but I think that will be more attractive for both us and real estate developers to look at further on. But it's the structure and how the streets work are definitely a question that we work with a lot. I think this is a solution to some of it, but maybe not everything, of course.
Okay, thank you very much, Louise.
Thank you.